so the first part of, really understanding and using this pelvic floor is, as I said, not to strengthen, but to find it. And if you've been having trouble finding it, once you find it and you think you've got the right action, what we need to almost create is a pathway in our brain. What I'd like to call a little brain map that sends up, we strengthen the signals between our brain and this region so that with time, it becomes consistent and we know how to access that part of our body very quickly. Okay, so in this part of the training and finding your pelvic floor, once you think you've got the action, it's not so about how long you hold and all these different things. It's about doing the action repeatedly, a few times over and over, but consistently, and doing the same pattern so that our body learns that pattern. So it's like any skill that we have to learn, we have to do some practice at that skill and make sure that we're practicing in the right way. So there's no point doing 30 odd different contractions but not doing them well. So it's really where you have to be quite conscious of what you're doing and really focus for that period of time. And if you put in that little bit of focus practice, what you'll find is that each time you go to do the pelvic floor and find it for different things, you'll find that you know how to access it much easier. Okay, so before you strengthen, you need to find it and build that pathway and make it stronger, particularly if it's something that you haven't been as familiar with or if you've been struggling after you've given birth to really find those muscles again. So for people, once they feel like that they've got that lift and let go and there's a definite isolated contraction to that area of their body, I'd often ask people to do it for up to 30 times. Turn it on and let it go. Turn it on and let it go. And they need to be mindful within that they're not tightening everything else, they're not holding their breath, not doing some of those cheating patterns that we have, that they're just focusing on that area. Okay, so there's practice. Once you do that, you'll find that it's easier the next time you come to do it. Okay, but rather than just doing a couple here and there every now and then and never really building that strong pathway, we need that to put in that dedicated practice. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, for some people, sitting down may not be the easiest spot for them to find these muscles. And it's good that we know how to find them in a range of different things. It's good for our brain to be able to know how to bring them on. So if you're struggling in a sitting position where there's a lot more load because you've got gravity pulling down and the weight of your body making it a little bit harder, then some of the easier positions you can use on the ground. So often a good position is on all fours. People will often find that they can particularly feel what's happening when they draw up their pelvic floor. They'll often feel a little bit of their deep tummy muscles, a little bit of a stretch and pull sideways. Not a real suck in, just a gentle tension through that tummy muscle. And that's the pelvic floor working in with those deep tummy muscles. I like to teach people the pelvic floor first because often those tummy muscles come in with that good pelvic floor contraction. Whereas if we go just straight to the tummy, what I've found is a lot of people just draw in and push down through their pelvic floor. So on all fours, make sure that your hands are underneath your shoulders and that your knees are underneath your hips, not sagging through the back, not arching, just find those neutral positions. If you're pregnant and you get sore hands or wrists, you might find that resting on your knuckles or even just resting on something else, like a ball or a chair or a bed, at that level will just take the pressure off your hands and wrists. So it's the same way in finding it in this position. We take our breath in first. As we breathe out, we draw the openings up towards our head. So we're going more this direction now. So there's a little bit less load on our pelvic floor. It doesn't have to work as hard. So it should be easier to get that lift. And again, once you've got the lift, see if you can keep breathing before you let it go. And again, you should feel a definite let go. But the feeling of let go might be different because it's not down towards the chair, which is a more obvious feeling. Sometimes it's a more subtle feeling of let go. So that can be a good position. And as I said, in this position, often when you get that pelvic floor lift, you'll feel that tummy muscles coming in. And you'll often feel the front part of your pelvic floor. So not so much of the back passage, but the two front openings, you'll get a little bit more lift there, which is really important. You start to be aware of that part of the pelvic floor. Other positions that you can use is on your back. So again, this is much easier in terms of there's no load on that pelvic floor. All your abdominal organs and pelvic organs have come off that area, so you'll feel a bigger movement and you won't feel that it's as difficult to find it. So if you really are struggling to find it, this is a good position to start in. But once you find it in this position, it's important you move to some of those more upright positions, because unless you plan to spend most of your life on the floor, then it's not going to be as helpful for you and you won't be able to progress as well. So we do need to start to move to those more upright positions with gravity and in the positions that we're going to be moving and spending a lot of our day in. So in this position it's similar, and this is a nice position because you can often have a little bit of a feel through the front parts of your tummy muscles as you're doing the action. So it's the same thing. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, we draw up those 3 openings. Now in this position, it'll feel almost like it goes downhill, okay? So the direction is down this way, okay? So it's still up, but it'll have a little bit of a downward feeling because of the angle. So you draw that up and then you let it go. And similarly, you probably won't feel as much lowering with the let go, but just more a relaxation of those openings. If you're feeling in here on your tummy, what should you be feeling? Okay, find the bony bits, the top part of your pelvis here, and then pop your fingers in and just stretch a little bit. As you draw the pelvic floor up on your breath out, under your hands, you'll just feel a little bit of tension. It sort of pulls sideways. Okay, it doesn't suck down and in, and you shouldn't feel like everything under your fingers, so the muscles here go popping up into your fingers. We just want a really subtle slide, a little bit of tension. Okay, so for those of you that have had an abdominal muscle separation, that's important to feel that little bit of tension, because that bit of tension that you're getting in those deep abdominal muscles is going to create tension across here for your tummy muscles to work from and help you with that separation. Okay, so just a little bit of tension. You can also, if you feel very comfortable with yourself, you can actually hold your pelvic floor and have a feel of what those openings do. But that obviously depends on how comfortable you are with doing that. Okay, similar to being on your back, finding your pelvic floor, you can also do it on your tummy. Just relaxing down. Take your breath in. As you breathe out, drawing up the openings. Okay. So you're not limited by your positions. You can try in a whole range of different things. And it's good to mix it up throughout the day where you do them in. But as I said, if you can do them in more upright positions, that's going to help you more for your day-to-day activities. When you move into your upright position for doing your pelvic floor, what you might find when you do that same action, taking your breath in, as you breathe out, drawing up those openings, it may not feel like you get as much lift. Okay, now that you're in standing, you're using more muscles to hold yourself up, so it can be a little bit harder to get that same lift. Some people will find it easier, but other people will go, oh, it doesn't feel like I can get that as much in this position, which is why it's important that you do learn and create that understanding of how to do it in this position. If you've recently had a baby, it can often be quite difficult where the connective tissue or the ligaments that join the muscles to the bone have been a little bit stretched. To really get that feeling. So one of the things that you could do to make that easier in the standing position is just to turn your toes in when you're doing the exercise. What this will do is tighten up some of the connective tissue within the pelvis and give your pelvic floor something a little bit firmer to work from. So if you're struggling in the standing position, you might find that an easier way to find it. So toes pointing in, you take your breath in. As you breathe out, drawing up those openings, thinking about getting all 3 slightly forward and up, and make sure you get that definite down. Okay, so that can be a helpful position when you're trying to find that area, particularly after you've given birth. Okay, another position that you can use if you feel like you're getting the back part of your pelvic floor, but not so much, it doesn't feel like much is happening from the front part of the pelvic floor, then we can use a forward leaning position. All right, so the forward leaning position, we pop our arms on the wall and we bend our knees slightly and tip your tailbone up a little bit, okay? That's going to put our pelvic floor. So it's almost like you're in a weeny bit of a squat, okay? But you don't want your tailbone tucked under. When it's tucked under, you shorten those muscles and it makes it very hard for them to work well. Okay, so we pop it out, you lean on the wall, you take your breath in, as you breathe out, drawing up each of those 3 openings. Holding it there and then letting it go and feeling that difference. And in that position with that forward lean, you'll just feel a little bit more of those front 2 openings. Okay, so as I said, if you're not getting much sensation of what's happening in the front, using that little bit of a forward lean is really a good position to find them so that you really can understand that the front part of the pelvic floor. And it's that part of the pelvic floor that people often have more trouble with in terms of the continence after they've given birth. So finding that front section is really important.